Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our examination of William Messner-Loebs' Journey series. These feature the adventures of Wolverine McAllister, and today we're going to look at numbers 8 through 11. So the first two videos in the series, I was looking at the collections that Fantagraphics put out in the late 80s, collecting 1 through 7 combined between the two of them. After that, I have all the issues. After reading these issues, rereading these again last night, I'm really bummed I don't have the individual issues for 1 through 7 instead of those collections. They do have new covers that aren't in the comics, but the collection does not reprint any of these beautiful watercolor covers from the series. Also, there's back covers on every one. Almost everyone has nice paintings, really great letter sections, some little short stories that weren't reprinted in those collections. So kind of annoying, but hopefully one day I'll get them. If any of you have spare copies of Journey 1 through 7, feel free to contact me. My email's in the descriptions. Maybe we can trade some shit or something, or you could just donate to the Academy. So let's check these out. So as I said, these covers are really well colored. They're really nice looking. So this actually starts off with the epilogue from the story that's been running in the past few issues, which we looked at in the second Journey collection, Bad Weather. So they reprint the last 2 pages that we looked at of that collection. This is them. I guess, sorry, that book reprinted these. But I've noticed something interesting here. This basically deals with Wolverine saying goodbye to that guy from England who he's befriended, this guy from England wants to retake the colonies for England, after the Revolution. And he's got a couple Canadian guys hanging out with him. This panel here, Wolverine just says, when your boss wakes up, tell him goodbye. Kind of abrupt, because then it changes scene. So I just want to show this off, guys, because I forgot about this. But in the Bad Weather that we looked at last time, I guess maybe one reason to own this collection is that he added a page to give it more of a sense of, finality. Because that would be pretty weird to just end it there. It's not really an ending, but he makes it more of a, kind of a goodbye and a finale. Just wanted to show that off. Now let's get back to this story. This is basically a whole chapter in Wolverine's life. Now we cut away to Fort Miami. We see that Frau Kiefer, the German woman, she's recuperating. She's been in the wilderness. Her basically nurse is this Indian woman, Mary. And the commandant of the camp of Fort Miami, it seems like he's taken an interest in her. Of course, they're still looking for her husband. Her husband is still out there in the wilderness somewhere. And I guess they were looking for the writer that was also traveling with this German couple. But last issue we saw that he was found by the guy we're calling Maurice. And he's he is who he is. He's just reading his own stuff over and over. So now we have chapter 10. Upcountry Shelter. And Wolverine once again is caught in some terrible weather. He's really freezing. He's barely holding on. He's just caught in the snowstorm. Once again, really interesting layouts from Messner-Loebs. And he kind of passes out. And then he has one of his nightmares again. Look at this art here, how different it is. Really interesting, though. I love the way this page just turns black. See, this is him waking. He stumbles. Then just this black swath. and then him waking up, it's bright again. But this nightmare, hopefully he'll explain why Wolverine keeps having these nightmares. But in this one, he's trapped in spider webs. He says the spider was the dark man. Apparently, in all these nightmares, there's a dark man who haunts Wolverine. So Wolverine realizes that he couldn't have been asleep for long or he'd be dead. So he keeps going, and then he sees a guy walking through the wilderness. And he starts yelling at him. He says, "You goddamn candleless, heel-toed bastard." And he lunges for him. They begin to wrestle, and then all of a sudden they start laughing. And it turns out this is Wolverine's old friend. And that's their, like, tough guy frontier idea of bonding, you know, of saying hello. So his name's Crawfish Martin. And he's pretty much was a guy like Wolverine, frontiersman, but he's settled down in his cabin. He's married an Indian woman named Sally. That's not a real name. Her name's Sparrow Dark. And they've got a little kid who kind of looks like Maurice as a little kid. His name's Joker. So Wolverine knows Sparrow Dark. And he, you know, as long as he's known Crawfish. They've been together for a while, I guess. So they get reacquainted. Wolverine brings some presents, some new sewing needles. And Crawfish got him a present. He gives him a book of Byron poetry. I like this how in Journey, he always references previous stories. So it has this kind of continuity. Now we see Fort Miami again. And we see this guy, Calico Jack. And he's like the Native American tracker for this fort. He's gambling with these guys. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. I gotta get some water. Back to the cabin. It seems like Crawfish has got a pretty good thing going. He's got a cute kid. Things are good. They're talking about politics here. Apparently Crawfish hates Jefferson and really liked Aaron Burr a lot. It's kind of implied that he served under Aaron Burr, or so he really admires him and thinks it's a goddamn shame that Aaron Burr now is kind of exiled. I don't know if this is from history, but Crawfish says that Aaron Burr and a few of his compatriots, like Crawfish, they wanted to take over Mexico. And, you know, Jefferson nixed the idea. I never heard of that. I don't know if that's a real thing. I think Wolverine was involved with this too. So Wolverine talks to Sparrow. I'll call her Sparrow because Sally's not a real name. He talks to her in her native tongue, Algonquin. And Crawfish never does. Crawfish calls her Sally instead of her real name. He only speaks English to her. And, you know, it's just kind of weird. Wolverine thinks it's a little odd. Like, you know, when did he stop speaking Algonquin to you? Crawfish claims that it makes him feel uncomfortable for some reason. And we realize from their conversation, there does seem to be a little trouble in paradise. And their relationship isn't that great. Back in the woods, we see the writer, the author. I think his name's Kraft, since he's an amalgam of Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft. And he's basically reciting his prose and poesy to Maurice. And Maurice is just reacting very humorously. She mentions that he just calls her Sally now. Crawfish just calls her Sally all the time. She says, yeah, he loves our son. He loves his dog. And I think he loves me as much as he can. So he reads some of this Byron poetry to her. We find out another previous trait of his father. This is a running gag in Journey where people would be like, how'd you learn how to do that? And I'll be like, yeah, my father was blah, blah, blah. So she asks him, how'd you learn how to read? My father was a preacher. If you guys remember in one of the early issues, somebody says, how'd you learn how to sew? My father was a tailor. So a kid's pretty cute. And so the writer and Maurice are still hanging out. And the guys from the Fort Miami finally found him. Calico Jack and some other guys. They say, we're here to rescue you. So here we have these letter pages. Oh, a lot of these letter pages are like four pages long. And I don't know, I kind of like these. You know, some letters are just boring, but it's just William Messner-Loebs' responses to people, and when he replies, you just get the sense that he was so thrilled to be making this comic. He was happy as a clam making these, and it kind of makes me sad that he ended up, writing The Flash for DC and all these superhero comics. And because his wife helped him out, Nadine, she was like his publisher basically, and I don't know, manager almost. And it just seemed like they had such a good thing going. William Messner-Loebs was just loved writing and drawing every issue, it seemed. Here's a nice little, I guess it's an ad, but this might be a new piece of art. No, actually, I don't think it is. And it's all these people sending illustrations of Wolverine. Here's an actual drawing by William Messner-Loebs. And we have this nice little back cover. Okay, Journey number 9. Very dramatic cover. Really nice. Now we have chapter 11, Near Spring. So Wolverine is just planning on staying at this cabin throughout the winter because he can't survive out there. And Crawfish is happy to have him. They're old friends. He likes having the company. And of course, Wolverine's helping out. They're hunting together. Sparrow's making Wolverine all these nice winter clothing and fixing his hat, which we saw destroyed an issue or two ago. I like this here when they open the door and all the snow is outside, and just the way he draws this, just like the influx of snow is just whites out everything. So Sparrow kind of, she teaches her Joker her ways, her Indian ways. She doesn't want him to forget because she knows he's going to grow up to be a white man, basically, that he's going to take after his father. But she wants to make sure that he knows, that it doesn't die with her. So they go out hunting, the two men. Meat's really scarce because It's nearing the end of winter. They talk about Aaron Burr some more. It really does seem like Crawfish idolized the man. Some of this drawing is just so nice. These weird faces he draws. And you can really see the Eisner once again. And then all of a sudden they hear this noise. And a forest bison attacks. I've never even heard of a forest bison. And it's just throwing Wolverine around like a rag doll. The bison charges for Crawfish. Crawfish shoots him right between the eyes. And now we cut away to Mr. Kiefer, the German, the husband of the woman in the fort. He's still lost in the wilderness. I don't know how he's surviving in the cold with just this. Looks like he's wearing a bathrobe. But he doesn't look too good. I guess he's been eating barks and roots. And, you know, he's half dead. He's like, merciful God, what else can happen to me? And then he hears, Deathy. And then we cut away. So now back at the fort, you know, they've successfully brought back the writer. So he's talking to the commandant. And he tells him a little backstory. So the commandant is from France. And it's almost like he's like Alex de Tocqueville. He says, I was a journalist on a journalistic tour of your country to study your experiment in democracy. Also to avoid the Madame Guillotine. He chuckles. And I guess this guy Luther Burke is there. He was some rabble-rouser in the Revolution. No, I don't know if he's a real character from history. But it seems like he's like an early socialist. He hates the aristos. He definitely doesn't like the commandant because he was an aristocrat in France. Here's Mary again, the nurse. She's not really a nurse. She works at the fort. Like this, he asks her, how do you manage to chop so many vegetables and not get bored? And she thinks to herself, I pretend they are white men's skulls. So now we have another wrinkle that I love. We see Wolverine and Crawfish, they're just totally like half dead from being attacked by that bison. But now we get the dog's point of view. His name is Schnarl. He is a fighter and a hunter. He's old and wise and sought after for his counsel. Once he found a weasel in a snowstorm. His pack leader is very strong and clever and well-versed in 5 magic. He throws death from a distance. He loves his pack leader. Talking about Crawfish. So he's trying to show you how a dog thinks. I love this. He says, yeah, but of course, on the other hand, his pack leader can't scent prey at a distance or run down a deer. Sometimes Snarl thinks his pack leader might not be a dog at all. I love that. I love William Messner-Loebs' writing. He has so many, almost every page has just some really like great little line or scene like that. So Crawfish admits that he's getting old. He says, I forgot. A rifle ball won't go through a bison's skull. I guess their skulls are too thick. So they still don't have any meat. And now they're all beaten up and sore. So here's another callback to a story. Crawfish is talking about this guy that they once knew, Eyetooth. And Wolverine informs him he's dead. Found him froze under a lake about 40 miles south of here. So that was that guy that Wolverine saw trapped under the ice. He loves to do this walking towards the camera a bit. So they're walking on a lake. And, they just talked about how they found a guy. Well, Wolverine was talking about how he found a guy trapped under ice. And all of a sudden, Wolverine's like, crawfish? Crawfish? Really good use of that technique. How he just falls down. So he's fallen through the ice. That's why he just disappeared like that. He looks down and sees crawfish. Eerily reminiscent of that scene a few issues ago, but this time the person's alive under the ice. Wolverine realizes he can't crack through with his knife. And, man, just to show how brave Wolverine is and what a good guy he is, he runs to find the hole where crawfish fell through, and he dives in himself. Now, remember, when water is this cold, they mentioned this earlier, basically, if you're in it for like a minute or two, you're dead. Your heart will stop. Even if you crawl out of the water, your heart will burst after like a minute. So he just basically doesn't care, though. He has to save his friend. So he goes through. Luckily, it's very shallow, this part of the lake. And between the two of them, they're able to shove the ice upward and crack the ice. These are, once again, like how this comic, you grow up reading all these superhero comics, like, Galactus is going to eat Earth, how dramatic. But the way he tells the story, little incidents like this, I mean, this is a life and death struggle. It is pretty dramatic anyway, but it's just a guy who could drown. It's not like Galactus eating planet Earth, but he makes it so, like, riveting. Like, I'm turning the pages when I'm reading this. Just like, what's going to happen? How are they going to get out of this? And they make it out. And they have to huddle together for warmth. And they squeeze the dog. And the dog is very confused. Kind of funny how he draws this dog almost like a funny animal comic. And once again, we get his point of view. I love this. He's so self-satisfied. He's like, it's a good thing to be allowed to lead the pack. And look how proud he is, because he's leading the way since these guys are kind of, fucked up. Oh, man. So here's some more letters. And here's a letter from Larry Martyr featuring his Bean World characters. So it's kind of a letter, but it's almost like a mini comic. Here's another drawing from some fan. Here's a poem by Nadine. It's actually not bad. It's a pretty good poem. Another fan drawing. There was one thing, interesting thing brought up in these letters, where some guy wrote in and said, oh yeah, this art kind of reminds me of Jack Davis. Maybe it's because everyone's so homely looking. And I kind of see that. I never would have thought that. Never would have thought of it myself, I think. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have. But it does have this, kind of, everything's kind of scratchy and, unkempt and homely. More fan art. And here's a little drawing from William Messner-Loebs. Unfortunately, we don't get a back cover. We get an ad. This is a William Messner-Loebs drawing, though, for his character, the Bunny of Death. Pretty nice, funny animal art. I kind of want to read that now. Here's a cute little cover. Once again, beautiful watercolors. How I look at it, I'm just saying watercolors because that's what everyone in the letter pages says. I don't know if this is watercolors. This sky looks like crayon or something. Maybe this is watercolor, though. I don't know. I'm not an artist. So we start off with Maurice. I'm going to keep calling him that. And he makes this poem about Lonesome Dave. If you guys remember, he was the guy from Fort Miami who killed himself on accident by drinking frozen alcohol, which basically froze his guts, killed him. And so the writer and Madame Kiefer, Mrs. Kiefer, are reunited. And she says, I wonder if my husband's still alive. And then we see him. I love this. Remember last issue? The cliffhanger? It's, what's his face? Damn it, I forgot his name. The guy who says Deathy. He's befriended the German man, Hans. And he's feeding him raw flesh. And he says, what kind of meat is this? I'd really like to know. And he just goes, Deathy. And he says, on second thought, maybe I don't want to know. Meanwhile, Wolverine is still hanging out with Crawfish. And winter is almost over, but still pretty harsh. They're getting firewood. Sparrow calls them in for breakfast. And it looks like the beaver they were planning to cook, the dog ate it. So he says, get out of here. Throws a dirt clod at him. And the dog runs away, terrified. By the way, this is chapter 12, Thawing. So Sparrow says something about Jefferson, almost like intentionally to rile up her husband. And this is an interesting character thing for Wolverine. So they're outside chopping wood. Crawfish, they're kind of hurling insults at each other. Like, your mom must have been half lion squirrel and half alligator. And Wolverine says, a man who was whelped by a she-wolf and ought to know. And Crawfish says, and your paw. And before he can finish it, Wolverine throws his axe at him. I'm sure Wolverine meant to miss, but it does look like he has to duck. And he says, sorry, axe slipped. So he tells Sparrow, he says, I should have known, I was stupid. He's always been very tetchy about his paw. He almost half killed a guy once, just for saying, hey, was your father a Scotsman? She says, come inside, I'll comb your hair. I guess this is some Native American practice. And she takes all the hair that she gets in the comb to make pincushions. She does it to Wolverine too. And I guess a few days have passed because Crawfish is talking about the dog. It's like, see if that damn hound's decided to come back. Serves him right if he stayed lost permanent, though. So he's goes outside. Once again, Sparrow and Wolverine are left alone. And they're talking in Algonquin. This seems to be a very, bonding thing for them. And it's interesting, Sparrow just heard what Crawfish said about Wolverine and his father, but she says, what was your father like? And he just says, he doesn't try to, get angry. He says, I never knew him, died before I was born. So obviously Wolverine and Sparrow, there's something between these two. They have a kind of a spiritual kinship, where when she can ask him that, and he's fine with it. But anyone else, even his best friend Crawfish, he almost chopped his head off. But Wolverine now takes her to task for bringing up that Jefferson thing. And she talks more about the problems with the marriage, which she can't even put her finger on it. She says, we laugh with one another, which I guess in Native American, laughing is a euphemism for having sex. So basically she's saying, we have a good sex life. He doesn't rant or beat me or the kid. But, just, he's an odd man. Now back to Hans. God damn it, I wish I remembered this guy's name. Mayhew or something? Fitzhugh. That's it, Fitzhugh. And they're all chatting. And then all of a sudden, Fitzhugh takes to the trees and grabs Hans and yanks him up. Now we cut back. We see Wolverine asleep, and Sparrow comes to his where he's sleeping and says, Crawfish left for good, looking for the dog. We're alone. You speak my right name and allow me my native tongue. I long to be with you. And we hear this laughter. And then it's just a dream. This is a total callback to when McAllister was staying with that widow, where he had the dream about having sex with her. And it's Mary's waking him up with a feather to his nose, and Crawfish is just laughing. She even says, I bet I know what you were dreaming about. So the two men take off for another day of hunting. Now we're outside the gates of Fort Miami here. There's a sentry. Mary comes out and says, hey, on a cold morning like this, I brought you some soup. And we see the guy drink it, and he passes out. She walks out to the woods, does kind of like a call. Maybe it's a bird call. And Calico Jack comes out. And they're totally plotting against Fort Miami. I guess he's talking about how he's made alliances with all these other powerful Indian tribes. And they're going to take out the white man. And the whole time, Fitzhugh and Hans are up in the tree. Hans heard everything. Well, Fitzhugh did too, but I don't know if he understands. So that's why he yanked him up to the tree, because he heard them approaching. Now we're back to Wolverine and Crawfish, and they're hunting. And they're following some badger tracks, even though Crawfish thinks they're possum, and they argue about it. I wonder if this is like a little shout out to the badger by Mike Barron, because it looks just like the logo on his chest. I mean, that's what badger tracks look like, I imagine. So they find his warren, and they're like, yeah, if he comes out of his hole, we'll have him, dead to rights. But then they put the gun down and say, it don't look like his home. In the background, we can see the badger, who is just arriving home, totally about to attack them. And once again, Wolverine shows his frontier prowess and shoots them before he can hurt them. And now they return victoriously with the badger meat. Everything looks really happy. You'd think they were this perfect happy family. And then Sparrow tells Wolverine, she says, so because days have passed once again, guys. And he basically, Crawfish is just standing outside almost every night and every day waiting for the dog to come back. So Sparrow's talking about that. How he's just waiting for that dog. He's wrapped in pain, but he won't tell me. Would you speak to him? I like this how she says, men will speak to men about their guns and dogs. So now, is this kind of weird? Wolverine kind of takes her to task for, teaching the boy Algonquin, little Joker. And she's like, I don't want him to forget his ways. I want him to remember me. Sure, he's going to grow up to be a white man, but I'm his mother. And I'm not a white, person. So I want him to remember me. So Crawfish is really missing this dog. Even though he when Wolverine goes out to talk to him about it, he says, like, oh, I'd throw him out again. Just basically ragging on his dog, what a crappy dog he was. And all the times he did shitty things, like stealing his mallet when he was building the cabin and digging up the turnip patch. And mainly, though, he's still sticking in his craw that he eat his beaver meat. And he says, miserable dog. And then he kind of looks sad and he says, I could have trapped another damn beaver. Fucking Messner-Loebs, man. I didn't read the whole thing to you, but it's so perfectly paced. It's just great writing. And then we see, once again from his point of view, Trough Snarl felt that whenever one pack leader went mad, whenever the pack leader went mad, the best thing to do was offer a healthy bribe. And so the dog comes back with a big beaver in his mouth. That's his bribe. Oh, man. And Wolverine even sheds a tear. I almost did when I was reading this last night, I gotta say. Oh, God, I love it. I guess this is kind of stupid, but just to explain these pages, I guess he had a contest where the first person to write in from every region of Canada and state in the United States and other countries would get an original sketch of Wolverine. And so every issue they waste 2 pages filling these up. More letter pages. We get a letter from Arn Saba with the little Neil the horse drawing. He basically is thanking Wolverine for that shout out of Neil the dancing horse. And I guess he didn't even know. It's not like Messner-Loebs told him. He's like, hey, could I use, your characters in my next story? He just did this. And luckily, Arn Saba wasn't offended or threatened legal proceedings. But he's thrilled. And he's just like, oh, man, that's so great. We should have a real crossover sometime. Mike Grell writes in and even draws this little John Sable with Wolverine's hat on. Got some ads. Here's another weird little William Messner-Loebs drawing for this genealogy index that they're advertising. This is Tom Stazer, the guy who used to do that Spaced comic, which I don't know anybody who ever read that comic. There's the ad for it. It's not a bad drawing, though. There's a picture of William Messner-Loebs. And here's another William Messner-Loebs drawing. Beautiful back cover of the Crawfish's family. And now we got issue number 11. Really like this cover. Really nice. Okay, yeah, definitely watercolors going on here. And so time has passed. Spring has come. And it seems like everyone's pretty happy hanging out. It's interesting. Sparrow tells Wolverine in confidence, she says, you know what my dream is? I want a trading post. But Crawfish will never go for it. Crawfish is getting a little annoyed that, like, Wolverine and her, talking Algonquin right in front of him. He can sense that they have this bond. See what I was talking about? That's his reaction when they're laughing about one of Lord Byron's poems. I don't know if anyone's ever laughed out loud from reading Lord Byron, but they do. Chapter 13, Getting Gone. So he says, Crawfish says, hey, Wolverine, you should tell Sally here that poem about the Sioux. Remember, that was a great poem he wrote. That was a funny one. And so basically the gist of this little poem, which is really a joke, It actually insults the Menominee tribe. And he laughs, and Sparrow says, very funny, I am a nominee, you know? And Wolverine's like, oh, shit. Insert mouth. Insert foot in mouth. And it seems like she's pretty hurt by this. And Wolverine goes right outside and just attacks Crawfish. Like savagely. It's not just fun. He's like, never. Never. Man, he's so good at fight scenes. All the angles he picks to use for the choreography. He says, never do that to me again. Do you understand? And Crawfish says, so, you love her too? And Wolverine can't even deny it. He says, that ain't the point. He's also pissed because it's almost like Crawfish is using Wolverine as a weapon. In his, Crawfish has got this little battle of the sexes going on with his wife. Husbands and wives, I guess, do. They're kind of at odds. Oh, yeah, this is what I want to point out. I don't know what's going on here, but look, all of a sudden, William Messner-Loebs draws trees very differently. Kind of trying to be more realistic. I don't like it. I love the way he drew those weird, almost abstract trees. They look better. And it continues this way. So I don't know, maybe he hired a background artist. He has an assistant that, he never admitted to. Look at these trees here. It's not nearly as beautiful as those backgrounds in the first few issues. So they're arguing, and it's kind of weird. So then Crawfish says, what my dream is? I'd really like a trading post one day, but Sally would never go for it. Wolverine doesn't say anything. He doesn't say, oh, that's her dream too. And he talks about, I guess Sally's a great woman, she does lots of great things for me. And Wolverine says, did you ever do nice things back for her? And he can't even remember. And the one thing he does remember, he said, yeah, like 2 years ago, she asked me to fetch some honey. She loves it. And he says, Josh, you feel like going with me to fetch some honey? So he didn't even get the honey. But in his memory, he was like, I was planning on getting her honey. That's pretty nice. You guys, I'm positive that William Messner-Loebs had the art assistant. This does not look like him at all. So Wolverine says, okay, let's go get that honey. So now we have a kind of comical interlude of them smoking out a beehive, grabbing the honey. They put it in his hat, in Crawfish's hat. And then the bees wake up and they swarm after them. Crawfish trips and is surrounded by bees. And Wolverine pulls him up and he says, which way to the goddamn river? Meanwhile, I guess a little later, little Joker finds the hat full of honey. And he says, look, Mommy, it's Daddy's hat full of honey. And Sparrow smiles. A little, very quiet smile. Meanwhile, the two dudes run into this river. And when they come to the surface, there's these three German guys. I guess they're ex-Hessians from the Revolutionary War. The German mercenaries who fought on the side of the English. And I guess after the war, they settled up in French Canada. And they even say how, like, we're as much French as we are German now. And one says, ja, and one says, oui. And they basically want to trade furs. But Wolverine Wolverine and Crawfish got larceny on their mind. They're like, we basically want to steal their canoe. We're going to try to trick them out of it. So they say, let's have a shooting contest, and we'll get your canoe if we win. And they totally, like, do this almost like a grifter play. And try to trick the guys into thinking that Wolverine made this crazy shot a mile away. And then they intimidate them. Kind of threaten them. So in this case, like, Wolverine's the bad guy. And one of the Germans finally says, just like, man, you're threatening my little friend over there, trying to steal our canoe. Are you trying to start a fight? And Crawfish says, could be. Now we cut away back to the cabin. Joker says, Mommy, look. Daddy's back. And the shit's beat out of them. But they probably beat up the other guys more. Because they now have their canoe. He tells some bullshit story to Sparrow. And she just says, idiots. So now Wolverine's all set to head out. You know, it's springtime. Wolverine's not one to settle down. He only stayed there that long because he couldn't leave. So he's got a canoe. Sparrow has fixed his hat again. Put an eagle feather for luck in it. Crawfish gives Wolverine his best moccasins. And Wolverine gives him, I guess he had like a nice shirt. Like the kind of a city person would wear. He says, you're going to need it now that you're going to open a trade-in post. So Wolverine basically lets the cat out of the bag in this subtle way. You're going to need this fancy shirt. And he says, well, yeah, I'm going to have that trading post. And Sparrow just says, as my husband wishes, of course. Even though it's exactly what you wanted. It's such good characterization in these comics. So they shove Wolverine off, and he's on his way. And turns out Joker's in the canoe with this little cartoony frog. And he says, love you, Uncle Josh. He actually says, love you, Uncle Josh. And so he has to row back to bring little Joker back. And Sparrow basically, as he's leaving, she tells Crawfish, or asks him, she says, like, I think we're his only friends. He doesn't have family or friends besides us, does he? And Crawfish says, not that I know of. The world can be a wide place without a tribe. Now he's alone. Do you think he's terribly sad? I don't reckon he's sad, is all that, Sally girl. I truly don't. And very significantly, he says it in Algonquin. So this is the first time he's talked to Sparrow in Algonquin in years. So maybe things will get better between the two. So after she says, when Crawfish says, I don't think he's sad, and we see Wolverine with a big grin on his face because he's back on the open road the way he wants to be. It does say lettering James A. Austin and William Messner-Loebs. I wonder if James A. Austin was also given a few background art tasks. Something's up with those trees. I'll make it to the bottom of this. If anyone knows about this, please write in the comments below. Here's a cute little drawing of I can't even pronounce his name right now without seeing it. That great dog. This fan made this little comic, Little Michael Taylor. This little kid finds a Journey comic book in his older brother's room. Him and his friend are just like reading it, going, oh, this is awesome. It's getting chased by a bear. And then they hear a growling sound, and they say, it's a bear, and they run. Turns out it's the big brother. She scared him to get him back first, taking shit out of his room. Here's a drawing by Stu Schiffman. I think I've seen that name before. I think he might have done some stuff. And he was that same artist who did that crappy comic drawing, another little homage to Journey. And even though this is an ad, I've never seen this drawing before. It's beautiful. Maybe this is on the issues I don't have. So I gotta get those. I really want 1 through 7 now. Okay, guys, that's it for Journey number 8 through 11, the third chapter in our examination of the adventures of Wolverine McAllister. Hope you guys are liking this as much as I am. I kind of doubt it, though, because I'm fucking loving these. And I just think William Messner-Loebs is such a good writer. I like the art, but his writing is stellar. Just really digging the hell out of these. And I don't remember them being this good. I don't remember liking these as much as I do now. So it's kind of exciting that, I just thought these were darn good comics, but now I'm realizing they're really great comics. So hope you guys are feeling the same way. If not, I'll be looking at something different tomorrow. So you can ignore it. Okay, thanks guys for watching. And hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.